Om Soham. Om Soham.
So this is the beginning of a 3-part series where Crystal is going to discuss the field, vibration, and frequency, and then tie that into scalar fields and how that is a huge component of integrity wellness. So in this beginning of the series, is 3-part series, Crystal's going to talk a little bit about the field, which also can be known as Aether. It's the blank canvas that we all occupy and live within. And a lot of her philosophy at Integrity Wellness is this is foundational to a lot of that. So I'm going to let her explain it before I butcher anything else. And Dr. Crystal, what is the field?
Thanks, Jesse. So the field is also known as ether, or the unified field of consciousness, or the quantum field, or the universe, or plasma, or dark energy. I could keep going on and on. There's been many, many names, but it's all referring to the exact same substrate. And that means that there's a beginning and a foundational element or substance of this universe that all life emanates and generates from. And that we would call ether. I call ether, or you can call it source, or you can call it quantum field, whatever you'd like to call it. And so this field itself is the very background that we live within and through. And it is self-awareness. It is self-correcting. It is an intelligence that is suprahuman. It comes before humans. It is greater and more superior to human intelligence. It's where our consciousness is derived from. So if we think about how intelligent human beings truly are and how magnificent we truly are, the substrate of the universe that we come from is even grander. It's even more majestic. It's even more intelligent. And to the point where we can't even fully understand it or comprehend just how amazing and incredible it is. So this is the background, and it's an energy. It can also be considered a superfluid. Some people and some physicists are referring to it as vacuum energy in the universe. Again, it doesn't matter what term humans want to put on it. What we want to know is, what are the properties of it, right? And how does it lead to improvements in application in our lives, right? There's mysteries of the universe and of the world that we will never be able to understand or appreciate with our limited ability as humans. So we know, it's undeniable, irrefutable, that there is a superior intelligence that's self-correcting, self-organizing. Your body is a perfect example, right? It's through you, and it creates all healing for you. It generates all of your processes and all of your rhythms, the pulses, your breath rate, all of it. And it's, again, this intelligence, and it's self-aware, it's self-correcting, it's self-generating, and that's what you are as a human. So when we look at, that's what the field itself is. Where is it? It's everywhere. It's the space between. So you've heard me talk about the magic of the space between. And that's what this is. The universe that we live in, we're so fortunate, we're so incredibly blessed to have the life that we get to live, where this intelligence is the space between everything, not the space between some things, not here and there, always in all spaces and in all places for all people. That's what we share in common. We all share this unified field of consciousness as living beings. And that unified living field of consciousness is alive. It's truly alive itself. And the properties that it has are that it is always creative, it's always productive, it's always working for your best interest. And again, as life itself, there's a lot that we could talk about what life is, but we'll just say that it's life itself. So the field that we're working with here at Integrity Wellness is precisely this field. And there's a lot of really incredible scientists and physicists and inventors that have, for the last 100 years or so, 150 years, began to really understand this unified field, that there is a source of energy that all life is derived from. So as these scientists have and inventors have found out the properties of this field that are very unique, there's nothing like it. They've been able to develop modalities and healing technologies, and they've been able to advance upon those scientists before them. And we're at the point now where there's a lot that we do know about the field itself, that the first things that really rise from this consciousness or spin in charge that then give rise to subatomic particles or electrons and protons, and then atoms, and then molecules, and on and on. So we know that there's this order of operations that nature and that this source energy follows, and the properties within that field that we're able to utilize in our technologies. So electromagnetism we've talked about before, and it's one of the properties that, or I would say attributes, that arises from this principal energy. And sound is another attribute that arises from this field. Light is arising from this field. And these are all different sources of energetic information and nourishment or nutrients for life. And they develop life. And we've talked about those things in past episodes. And so we'll move on later in the series to talk about another attribute of the field called scalar energy or scalar fields. And really, if you think about this field itself as similar to how fish are living in a lake or an ocean, and they have no idea that they're living in a substrate or a medium. We are no different. We don't know that we're living within this intelligent superfluid necessarily because it's so ubiquitous, it's so inherent in life that we forget about it. We don't see it. We don't value it as much as we should. And when a fish is moving in water, it doesn't feel or think that it's moving in water, although it is. And someone from the outside could see and understand that that water is moving like waves, right? And creating waves within that medium And that's what I would call a perturbation. And a perturbation just really means movement of the substrate. So movement of the ether is what sound is what frequency and vibration are. It's moving the field itself, same as electromagnetic energy. It's movement of the field itself. It's not something separate, right? Two sides of the same coin, but we're talking about the coin, not the two sides of the coin. So the coin is principle, whereas the side is the attribute. And so we're talking about the principal source of energy of the universe and of all life. And it is really the beginning. And that's why it's fundamental and why it's so important at Integrity Wellness.
Awesome. Thank you. And I want to know, when you see a new member, or just anyone that perhaps is struggling with something, or is the opposite, or is really succeeding, so to say, in something else, do you look at the field as a perspective of the outward expression that is a result of all of that? Because I think you recently mentioned to me about the picture, the canvas, the painting,
Yeah.
and the brush stroke and whatnot.
Yes.
So I'm not sure if that also ties into how you help members at Integrity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I do often use the canvas as an example, and so I'll describe that first. So every painter uses a canvas, and the canvas is the background, right? It's the medium through which the expression of the painter is then materialized. And so the canvas itself, every brushstroke that you take on top of that canvas is all added to the totality of it. The canvas is always there, so you can cover up the canvas and not see the canvas and only see the painting, but doesn't mean that the canvas isn't still there and what's creating it all. For the most part, the painter is obviously the source energy, but the canvas itself is very easy to understand, that when you paint it and you create this physical materialized expression on top of the canvas for everyone else to see, most times they only see the painting or the physical expression. They don't see the canvas itself anymore. And that's quite like this source of energy, whereas it's largely forgotten, or it's largely it's not taken into consideration, but life itself wouldn't happen without it, right? So that's the canvas example. And really, every single bit of physical life is materialized expression from the unified field of consciousness. So consciousness is fundamental. It means that it can't be any other way. It must be present in order for any life or any material to emerge. And so there's a lot of physicists today, thank goodness, that are looking more into this unified field of consciousness, or even the sort of field itself of consciousness, and trying to understand more and more what this is, how it works, and how we can tap into it. Because if it's the source of all intelligence and the source of all energy, there are ways to have very different tools for human and animal life, like free energy, at a fraction of the cost, a fraction to develop, and that would not result in the requirement of such renewable options, right? It's endless, it's infinite, and there must be a way. And Nikola Tesla and Albert Einstein and James Clerk Maxwell, back in the 1800s, early 1900s, were discovering this through 0-point fields. And again, we'll get into that when we talk about scalar. But there's a lot here. And really, this exploration is where humans really should be going. We should be heading there. Because if that's the source of all intelligence, which your body is completely intelligent, that's the source of healing, right? That's the source of all suffering too, right? The universe becomes more about consciousness and mentalism and vibration, and how that field itself is agitated, if you will, by our thoughts and by our emotions, than it is from anything physical, right? But we look at the physical world as if it's the be all and end all, that it is the circumstances that then create the physical reality after. But it's totally opposite. It's the conscious field and our relationship and interaction with it and to it and through it that actually fundamentally creates all physical reality, everything. So it's kind of important that human exploration and intellectual advancement and progress actually starts to look there. Because what I've noticed, and seemingly many other people in the world have noticed, is that we've gotten so progressive that we are now regressive, which means we've gotten so fixated on the physical material world that we've forgotten the very basics of what life is and what it comes from and how it is and how it generates. And that's like trying to have a coin toss without the coin, right? You're not going to get very far. So we've gotten about as far as we can get, looking sort of, with our limited, narrow spectrum of the material world, as if that's all there is. And we've gone as far as we should with that. And we should start kind of going back to the basics of everything. And you'll notice in all institutions, they've lost all of the basics as well. And that's why we're seeing this grand reemergence, I think, of consciousness and the unified field, and the study and exploration of that is because people are starting to really see that the fundamentals, the foundation of the house is missing. And it's more like a house of cards built on quicksand, right? And that's not going to last. So if human beings really want to make a difference, then we should be looking back to our roots and soil for the problem that's in a tree instead of the leaves, right? So the leaves are the attribute of the tree. And then the roots and the actual soil are the life of the tree. It's where all of that energy and source and intelligence comes from. And you can kind of look at the same thing as like a seed, right? We all kind of come from seeds like eggs in our mom's ovaries, right? All of the information is there. And it's just there. How can it be in the tiniest little thing? Same as an acorn. All of the information for the oak tree is in there. They're identical, except they're not. One's a grand tree and one is a small, tiny seed. So we live in a network of harmonic information. That's what the field itself is. It allows this holographic and fractal nature of life to be possible. And so when we start there, and I'd help teach people about understanding what that is, and they may not understand it in the depths or the ways that I do, and that's fine. but just having an understanding or an appreciation or a reverence for this super intelligence that is what gives us life is so different than going through life in this materialistic, mechanistic, very destructive way, thinking that we are everything. We're incredible beings, but you have to be able to value the source of life and life itself, the process of life, how it happens, far more than just valuing the materialized expression of the seed, right?
Amazing. We be grateful for where everything comes from in the for lack of better terms, right? Being grateful for everything, where everything comes from, this field, as opposed to living in a state of constant desire or worry for what we physically see. I think that would wrap up today for this episode. And next, we're going to jump into the next part of after this field. We then have frequency and vibration, which Dr. Crystal is going to give you all the details behind that. Is there anything else that is necessary to add in regards to the field?
I think the only thing I'd like to just make sure people are aware of is that the field itself is fundamentally immeasurable. It's not something that human beings have the capacity at all to be able to objectively or quantitatively measure. And we live in a world today that's very quantifiable in its nature. It wants to quantify everything. And so the field itself, we don't have tools that we could measure. And we can't say exactly the details that are within it. But again, everything comes from it, so you can study the attributes and the properties of it. It's something that's very fundamental, and human beings sometimes lack the awareness that we are not the be-all and end-all of this universe. And we're we have too much hubris sometimes to think that there is a supreme intelligence. And by intelligence, I mean awareness, right? If everyone can understand where your awareness comes from is that field. It's that fundamental awareness, that intelligence that creates all things. It creates mountains and it creates you. It's profound. And that is lacking in every area of healthcare and education and pretty much everywhere. And it is being studied through various physicists, like I said. Nassim Haramein is a really amazing physicist who's been studying this work and publishing papers on the unified field for a while. And so I'll leave some links that we can put in for this episode for people to follow along. He's done a lot of great work. Again, it's in the kind of sense that shows people how you can quantify to the degree that we can quantify, but it's not a quantifiable. It's qualitative. The field itself and life is qualitative. And I think that's really important to specify, because most people are terrified at the idea or the notion that you can't just measure everything and know everything with absolute certainty. No, there are things in this universe that there's no way we will ever know and no way we could know. And what we have been told is there's no way we could know too. And it's okay to just be honest about those things. But qualitative versus quantitative is a very big distinction. And when we're looking at health, especially, there's nothing quantifiable about you or me. There's nothing reproducible about you or about me. You're totally unique. I'm totally unique. And that diversity is, again, a part of that properties of the field. Every single thing has its own uniqueness, its own unique living nature. Snowflakes. There's no two snowflakes that are the same. There are no two blades of grass that are the same. This is profound. And it's a fundamental, inherent principle of the field itself. And so when we know that, we can utilize that to our favor when we're actually trying to improve our own lives or our own health or our conditions. So I'd like to just make sure people understand that part.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Crystal. And we will be right back with the next episode. Loved it. Thank you.
No problem.
Om. Soham. Om. So